Welcome to the Firebelly Social Show. We're focused on talking to food and beverage brands that are on a mission to make the world better.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Firebelly Social Show. I'm your host, Duncan Alney, and I interview founders and CEOs of mission-driven food and beverage brands. And it's you've been following along. It's an exciting show. We've been talking to some really cool people. And this episode is brought to you by Firebelly Marketing. And it's an amazing approach to social media. We've helped companies like Justin Winery, Fiji Water, Bake Believe, and Karma Nuts. And Karma Nuts is interesting because Christina Appleton, our client there, has introduced me to this amazing guest today, Dustin Finkel. Welcome, my man.
I appreciate you having me. And just another shout out to Christina. She's just awesome all around. So kudos to her and her company, but thanks for having me.
Yes, and you know, her Power Bites are amazing. I have eaten them in the morning, and they really are a complete little meal that is healthy and good. So thank you, Christina, from both of us. So Dustin, why don't you give your little elevator speech, and we can hear it from your words. You've gone from power finance, to leading top brands, and now you're changing the world.
Well, I hope so. One puff or bite at a time. But yeah, I started my career in investment banking at Goldman Sachs, which is not the typical entrepreneurial startup journey that most people go through. But I do think, and I talk about this a lot with companies I advise, having that financial background and wherewithal has been incredibly important to my career, both as a startup founder and throughout my other CPG life. I went to business school at Northwestern, not the best football team in the world, but a great business school. And then went over to CPG, where I shifted into General Mills. I had the opportunity to launch the first nationwide gluten-free product ever with gluten-free checks. I've worked at White Wave with Horizon Organic, went smaller and smaller, kind of did the big one at Abbott Nutrition, and then started my own company, Kapop, in 2018. And then in 2021, I took over another company, Bubba's Fine Foods, where we came together and created Awaken Foods that also has a manufacturer, because I wasn't busy enough with one brand. We added another brand and a manufacturer. So why not?
Well, that's amazing because I love the, am I saying it right? Your naughty and nice craving. Is that?
Yeah.
And Bubba Foods, but one interesting point within Awaken Foods, with congratulations on all of that, is right. Actually have the ability to do co-manufacturing as well. I think the inside term is co-man.
That's right, co-man. I'll tell you, there's a tremendous amount of white space in this area, and I'm sure we can talk more about that, but there's a dearth of capacity in co-manufacturing for small companies, and there's reasons why. But I love the opportunity to give other small brands the chance to do what we've done so far. And working with other companies has been great. I've had the opportunity to meet a lot of other great founders, learn from them, share with each other what works, what doesn't work. But also, just as importantly, is we're able to produce our own products. And so what that allows us to do are things like seasonals, limited time offerings. We just launched on the Kapop side our pumpkin spice offering and our gingerbread cookie offering. Both sold out within weeks. And I will tell you, while all of my products are my babies, pumpkin was my favorite baby. And I love it. And I had to literally steal a bag from someone's order just to keep one extra before they all went out of stock.
I mean, that is amazing. I love the seasonality, and I find great encouragement on behalf of founders out there that they can have someone on the co-man side that gets it and that can give them the assurance, and not, with the wrong co-manufacturing relationship, there's all kinds of jeopardy out there. So I love that you get it firsthand. And, I was going to get to this later, but you one of the things I love about what you talk about is the white space and seizing the white space. Let's talk about that. Where did that come from, and why is it important?
I think it's tremendous to find areas that are open in the market to take advantage of. In the end, I am a business person, and whether you're a nonprofit or for-profit business, seizing the white space is really important. What that means is there's a lot of different terms for white space: blue ocean strategy, red sky, I don't know, North Star. There's a lot. Well, actually, that one's a little different, but there's a lot of different opportunities for white space. But the simple definition of white space for me is, where is there an open area in the market for you to take advantage of? And I have the pleasure and opportunity to teach at University of Colorado as an adjunct professor. And it's something that I teach there because it's been a huge, powerful tool across my career. When I went to Abbott Labs and was a general manager there, we had a brand, Zone Perfect, that had been declining for nearly 12 years. And the simple way that we rebuilt this brand was doing a 4-quadrant white space, the same thing I teach in my business school class at University of Colorado, where you take an a y-axis and an x-axis, and you label them high price, low price, high quality, low quality. That's typically where people start. And you map all the competitive brands in your category against that. And where's their white space? And I always say, there's always going to be the white space of high quality, low price. So that's kind of not a realistic thing, right? So it has to be both real and it has to be a proven opportunity area, and there has to be a size of prize. And you keep doing those X and Y axes with different terms until you find something that really makes sense for you. It's also a way to validate ideas that you have, to really test the idea, the innovation you have against that. And so when I talk about seizing the white space, it also doesn't have to be very tangible. I'll give you an example with the co-man. You actually said it better than I will, probably. But one of the things that really differentiates us as a co-manufacturer that really shouldn't, but it does, is that I treat brands, as entities that want to grow, that they have concerns, that they need partnership. We are not just going to take your formula, squeeze it through our machine, and create a widget. I'm going to talk to you about how the pricing might impact your SRPs on shelf. I'm going to talk to you about gross margin and how you might want to think about how you spend your money to make top line versus bottom line numbers. I'm going to have those conversations with you. And again, being proactive about thinking through the challenges that our customers might have, not just what they do have, has proven really effective. And that's not something that should be rocket science. To me, that's obvious, but that's a white space in the marketplace, partnership. So it's a great example. It doesn't have to be tangible. Partnership is not a tangible concept, but huge white space for tangibility. Customer service is not necessarily tangible, but that can be a white space as well. So I also talk about it with Kapop all the time and with our Bubba's Fine Foods products, that our white space is authenticity, simplicity, and great taste. Again, shouldn't be white space, but it is, and it works. And so that's how I define white space. Everything we do from an innovation standpoint goes through the lens of, is there an opportunity to play against a gap in the market that fits a niche for our target consumer? The most critical thing, and I start every class and every semester off with this, is everything begins and ends with your target consumer. Everything you do should begin and end with your target consumer. And that is how you know you're approaching and applying the white space analysis correctly. So, for instance, if you are a beauty brand going after women, I'm going to be overly simplistic, but women 50 and above, let's say, but you do your white space analysis against, jocks at a gym, very different approaches to white space, right? And so our target market is very, very critical.
So it's a beautiful way to approach opportunity mapping, really, and like finding, and what's really phenomenal about, I love talking to founders, because the difference between, I'll say us, even though I'm in a different space, but the difference between founders typically, especially in the CPG space, is that you see something that doesn't exist, and then you decide to act on it, and that is sometimes a single best and worst decision, right? So, I mean, I always love to compare with another interview I've done. I interviewed Rusty Jones, and he's the founder of Hello Water, and it's water with fiber in it, and he talks about cleaning up the grocery aisle, specifically the aisle for drinks. It's like, hey, there's no sugar in it. I've eliminated millions and millions and millions of calories of sugar, and children are drinking water with fiber in it. And what you're talking about is really sort of the nexus of health, clean food, and sustainable food.
Mm-hmm. That's right. That's right. There's so many brands out there. Go ahead.
Those can be together.
That's exactly my point with this company. Is there's so many brands, and it's really disheartening to me to step back when I do demos. And I love demoing. And by the way, it's one of the greatest things that we do, and I do as a company, is go demo, because I learn everything good and bad that customers and consumers are going to say about our product. The most frustrating thing to me is that consumers have demonstrated they do not trust us in CPG whatsoever. So I can say whatever I say to them, and they're going to take my bag, they're going to flip it, they're going to scan it. It's like they're looking for clues on how I'm screwing them over, right? Because they're like, how is this not what you say it is? And it's because we have done a terrible job of being authentic. Brands that say they're paleo, well, technically they might check the box, but they're laden with sugar because it's a lot of date paste or whatever in there. There's brands that say they're ancient grain like us, but ancient grains are the sixth ingredient in the ingredient deck, and they're sprinkling a little bit of it in the packaging. And so that lack of authenticity is really problematic. So that's number one, is being who you say you are. The second is simplicity. And again, simple doesn't mean it doesn't taste good, but simple means, like in our products, we're 100% ancient grains, cold pressed oil and seasoning, and kapap. In our Bubba's Fine Foods, the ingredient label is crystal clean. And then the third, and this is where most brands miss it, unfortunately and shockingly, is taste. You gotta freaking taste good. Our product tastes fantastic. Now, I'm biased, obviously, but it's proven by the reviews, it's proven by the people, it's proven by the retailers. It just tastes fantastic, and that's the differentiator. Bringing all three together doesn't really exist in the marketplace, and regardless of category. So again, that's a white space. What I took that white space, I combined it with snacks, and where I saw there's white space in ingredients, and then I looked at sustainability, which you brought up as well, which is how do we build a brand that is not only great for your body, but great for the earth? And a lot of people ask me, well, why do you use sorghum as an example for our kapap product? And when we were first coming up with this idea, I could have really used any ancient grain. And most ancient grains are very sustainable. And in fact, they all are really good for our earth. But what I loved about sorghum is it comes from all farmers in Colorado and Kansas. 91% of the land it's grown on uses zero irrigation. It revitalizes the damage in our soils. It's a cover crop. I mean, you can talk about this endlessly, and it's so beneficial for our bodies as well, full of protein and fiber, antioxidants, etc. And so ultimately, you can have your cake and eat it too if you do it with authenticity, simplicity, and joy, and just partner in great taste and sustainability.
I mean, I just love the kapap example. So it's ancient grain, it's cold pressed oil, and it's seasonings. I mean, if you
That's it.
imagine you were cooking like a steak, right? And instead of just putting some stuff on and grilling it and eating it, and maybe some salt or whatever your deal is, it's like, hold on, I'm gonna put some calcium oxide on it, and I'm gonna put this other stuff on it. I'm gonna put some xanthan syrup on it. I'm gonna put all these things I can't pronounce on it. It's like, in real life, I mean, I understand that CPG is different than real life, but we'd never go for that in real life. So I don't know why it is as consumers, but I know I was listening to you talk about part of this is that, the general population is beginning to look at organic as a journey, and it's up to, mainstream companies, even Walmart. We'll use Walmart or Costco as an example to get on that journey, even if it's a small portion of their business, but they're getting on board, they're doing some super cool things. And you guys are leading the way because you're posing those questions to these large groups. It's like, hey, this is not just a trend, it's becoming a movement.
Kudos to companies like Costco. I don't think a lot of people know this. The largest seller of organic products in the world is Costco. Now, as a percentage of their business, I don't know. It's probably not huge, but they're like the largest natural and organic retailer is Kroger. Walmart is actually doing a phenomenal job of starting to bring this into different categories. And so, I'm really appreciative, but, their business does too. So it's clear that they're following consumer trends, right? And they're seeing consumers asking more and more for this. A great example is we're a vegan company and we have vegan cheese. And I'll tell you what, our vegan cheese is plug for us, but also a story is that, we go to dairy managers and they can't tell it's not real cheese. And it's funny, originally when we first launched, people were like, oh God, vegan cheese. They don't even think about it anymore. I don't even think about it anymore because again, you can bring that authentic taste to it. And that's bringing better health, reducing the impact on our environment, and doing it through something that tastes just as good as the real thing. So, as you think about those retailers building the natural and organic space, there's always going to be $1 billion of Oreos sold every year. There always will be. And God bless it. Every once in a while I eat my kid's Oreo and it tastes freaking fantastic. But as I live a pretty clean lifestyle, it's very rare in a plant-based lifestyle. But I will tell you this, that you can have your cake and eat it too. It's all about managing your health and wellness through great products that aren't trade-offs. When you eat Kapop or Bubba's, you're not trading off. You're having just as good an experience. And that's what I think a lot of natural food brands are missing the point, is that they're trying to be too functional, or they're trying to be too this or too that. Consumers don't like trade-offs. Food should be fun. Snacking should be fun. And we just need to deliver that in a better way.
That's amazing. I think I saw the numbers that the US market for healthy snacks and this category in general is about 30 billion and 110 billion worldwide. So this is a pretty massive opportunity we're talking about here. And then we talked earlier about trends and movements with the box businesses and keto and paleo. I guess let me ask you this question. With all this stuff going on, what are you excited about? What's coming up, or what have you done lately, that you're excited about?
Well, I'm going to hit that on two fronts, one in business and one in personal. A couple business things. One, hitting on what you're saying. I think I'm a big fan of Freakonomics, the book, and I listen to their podcast. And we're all driven by incentive-driven thinking. Everyone acts based on the incentives that are given to them. And I'm not a big fan personally of huge intervention by our governments and other people, but I do think if we can be more incentivized to do the right thing personally and professionally, it will help impact the marketplace. So that's a longer story, probably a whole nother podcast that we can talk about. But I do think the opportunity for incentivizing consumers and retailers and companies to be more sustainable, to put better ingredients in their products. Global warming and things that we're all concerned about might be benefited. I mean, for instance, it's November 19th right now when we're recording this, and I'm in Denver, Colorado, and it's like 70 degrees out, which I'm not complaining about per se, but clearly there's something going on. So now to answer your second question, what I'm really excited about is the personal journey that I've gone through. And I mentioned this to you a while ago before we were recording this, but people hearing this will hear this very firsthand. It's brand new, but I kind of hit a emotional rock bottom 6 weeks ago or whatever it was, and where I took the pressure of having my own company, and anyone who's an entrepreneur will understand the lonely roller coaster that you're on. It's very emotional. I've fought through that very well, but for a lot of reasons in my personal life, professional life, that just started crashing down upon me. We're raising money. The business is on fire, but I'm struggling to raise money. I need to hire people. Everyone on my staff is overworked. A lot of stress here, supply chain issues. I just felt the weight of the world quite literally on me. And I was sitting at home one day and kind of had a mini mental breakdown. I mean, it was like 5 minutes, but I just kind of like lost it. And candidly, I don't know exactly what brought me out, but I started listening to some podcasts and reading and praying and meditating and trying to find my spiritual self again. And I focused on two things that has been really powerful for me. One is gratitude, and the other is letting it go. And so on a Monday, this is about 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago, I came into work and I was like, you know what? I'm going to show gratitude. I'm going to play the 100-0 principle. I'm not going to ask for anything in return. I'm just going to be gracious for what I have. And so I sent emails and I made calls and I sent texts to a group of people. And I just was like very personal. Hey, I'm really thankful for you in my life. Here's why. I'm really thankful for what you've done. And I didn't expect anything in return. And just doing it was so impactful. It helped me remember what I've built, what the people around me have built. I have an incredible organization with incredible people, and it was very, very impactful. That was the first thing. The letting it go is someone who is one of the most A-type people you will ever meet, one of the most competitive people you ever meet. I'm not one to let things go easily, not grudge-wise, but I more mean like if I see a problem, I'm going to go through the wall to solve it, big, little. And so it's not letting those things go, but it's understanding where they fit in the scheme of things. Okay, that's just something that I need to deal with. And it also really helps with understanding the process. I'm the type of person, I see the goalpost, I'm running towards that goal line. Now I'm going through the moments, the good and the bad, and saying, this is the journey. Wow, this is a cool journey I'm going through. And I'll tell you today, unbeknownst to you, has been one of those days before I got on here, and I'm still smiling because you know what? I'm like, this is part of the process. This is part of the journey. I'm grateful for learning part of this, and it's been a remarkable rebirth. And so that's my personal life Now, the way I brought it to my business is I really sat down and said, okay, how do I want to operate my business? And I don't want like 10 core values. And we have nice core values here that I love and appreciate. But like, I don't want the 10 core values. What are 3 things that we can live by here? And 2 are business. 1 is ownership, because I believe heavily in ownership. 2 is dedication, because at where we are and what we want to do, you have to be dedicated. And the 3 is your attitude. And that's probably the most important. I want a can-do, positive, optimistic attitude. And to the point that it goes to every person in the organization. I gave a manifesto to my COO and a co-founder of Bubba's, and I said, you hold me accountable to this. These 3 things, I wrote it out, told them how I'm going to do it. And I said, you hold me accountable, because this is not a me down thing. This is an everybody thing. And it's been amazing. I was in my CEO group, and I'm part of a CEO forum group. It's about 5 of us. We meet on a regular basis. And they're like, for the first time since we've ever known you, you're lighter, you're thankful, you're positive. It was like you have a glow about you. And I hadn't even told them anything yet. And it was fantastic. And so I was excited to share with them exactly what I'm sharing with you. And it's amazing. And so I really encourage people out there to know that in those dark moments, they need to find their thing. And it's so much easier said than done. When you're in that moment, they're like, it doesn't make sense. It's horrible and it's terrible. And I sympathize so much. But for me, I'm praying to God quite literally that I can maintain this, and I write it down and I go through it and I think about it on the way to work, and it's my mantra. And so very proud of it. And I appreciate you letting me share about it.
No, it's amazing. I love that. I love the the humanity and your vulnerability. Thank you so much. I mean, I think that it's hard, when you are the leader. As you said, it's a roller coaster journey. I think Appleton, actually, I never knew there was a hashtag called founder life, but because founder life is different. It's like you're the leader. You're expected to see what's coming, over the horizon. You're expected to keep up with things, and then you're expected to input into tactical matters. And there's just a lot. And I find great inspiration in what you say, because I went through something in August and September. I had to stop very suddenly and go to India, where I grew up, to look after my dad, who was literally knocking on heaven's door. So, I mean, and I went there and I had to stop everything. My company continued without me. And what I came through is that, we got to stop. As you said, you got to stop. And it's the spaces where there's silence sometimes that you find the most meaning. It's like, you stop looking, as you said, stop looking for the obvious answer, and it'll, there's sometimes in those quiet spaces where you find the meaning.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that, because there's a couple of concepts in what you said that are very powerful, and I didn't realize what they meant until recently. One, though, it's funny if you have kids out there. One of the things they say before you have kids, everyone says, your life's going to change. And you're like, oh, I get that. Until you have kids, though, you don't really get it. And until you start your own company, everyone's like, it's emotional roller coaster, it's lonely. You're like, yeah. Until you do it, you don't really understand what that's like. But, something says very powerful, the spaces. And I had a business coach for a while who I love. And he moved to Germany recently. He would always talk to me about slowing down and allowing for that space. And my brain, and anyone who's ever worked with me will tell you, I'm very, very fast. I am constantly processing. I am moving. I'm fast thinker. And it's been really interesting. I finally understand what he means by that. And so really, really thrilled by the idea to create that space and create that journey. So it's been great.
No, that's amazing. And I think the other piece is that, we have a finite amount of time. And so, at the end of the day, we're going to do what we do, and then we're not going to be doing it. And someone else is going to be doing it. And how can we just remember that? I love that you are taking that time for yourself, and it's going to inspire and influence all those people around you. I got a curveball question for you, my man.
All right.
During this call, we're talking about this. This is a man that takes life seriously. You're obviously a great son. You're a good father. You've talked about your kids. You're a great husband. You're a leader. You're in so many lives. Now they were going to make a movie about you, Dustin Finkel. Who's going to play you?
Oh my God. Wow. I've never had that question. And I was not prepared for that at all.
Back up.
This is where I go with, like, do I go ego wise? Because I want, someone really, like, the most sexy man alive type of, ego, or Oh my God, that's such a great question. You know who I love? I think the answer that I think is right, and this is purely based on, I think, incredible acting skills. I think he's incredibly underrated. I think he's relatively good looking, is Leonardo Dicaprio. And he is such a phenomenal actor and I think so underrated. And he can, because I think one of the things, and the reason I say that in all sincerity and seriousness is that I am a fairly complicated person. And so someone that can understand the depth of sometimes I joke the torture that is within my head sometimes and the second guessing and the inner monologue and all that kind of stuff. I need that Oscar type actor that really brings that through. So great question. I'm gonna have to follow up with you later when I really digest that question.
Yeah,
great
yeah.
one.
I was asking a couple of people this morning. I was showing your picture, and we listened to a few minutes of your podcast. And one of the female members on my team said, "I think an intense, cerebral David Beckham could play him."
Oh, wow. That's a huge compliment. I would love to be as good at soccer and other things as he is. I will say, I get a lot of you look like, and so it's hard to tell on camera, but I'm 6'6", like 270. I'm fairly built up, and so I get a lot of John Cena, which and by the way, none of these do I actually agree with or see, but I get this all the time. John Cena. The one I get constantly is Tim Tebow, believe it or not. And I think those are the two that come up the most. There's one other, but I'm blanking on it. But yeah, those are the two that come up the most often.
That's awesome. Thank you for indulging me with that fun.
I want to meet the person who said the David Beckham comment. Thank you for that.
We have to make that happen. So before we go further, we've got a few more questions to ask. This is sponsored by Firebelly, where we make brands more likable on social media. And also, before we go too much further, how can people find you?
Well, me personally, no, just joking. The product you can find on kapopsnacks.com, KOKAP. Oh my God, I hope you can edit that out. My brain I'm still on this actor question. Kapopsnacks.com, and then bubbasfoods.com as well. Wow, I've never stumbled on that before, but that's the first.
I'm constantly fearful that I won't remember our four core values. And so I decided we're not going to have four anymore. We're going to have one.
I learned a really good point by that on a podcast I was listening to. A lot of people do this where they say, I have 3 points I'm going to tell you. Like number 1, number 2, I can't remember the third. And then they go 4, 5, and 6 or whatever. And so the person's like, never, ever do that as part of your communication style because 95% of the time you're going to forget.
Totally. So before we get to the other questions, thank you. Remember, it's kapop.com and
kapopsnacks.com.
Kapopsnacks.com. Also, Awakened Foods. And I know that I went on and immediately asked you for your information, and you get a 20% discount. So that's awesome.
Right.
So what's going on with Bubba's? Is there some big news with Bubba's?
Yeah, I appreciate you asking. So I love the Bubba's Foods product. I've been a fan of them for years. I'm so happy to be part of our portfolio now. They are granolas, or we are granolas, snack mixes, etc. And a lot of the people these days are eating, and this is a great white space analysis also. A lot of people are eating in food tribes nowadays. So keto is a food tribe. Paleo is a food tribe. Grain-free, vegan. There's all these different food tribes, and we kind of even call them food religions sometimes. And what we found is that our products are really phenomenal at meeting those different food tribes. We're one of the few brands that crosses multiple food tribes. And we do it with the authenticity, simplicity, joy, and sustainability we talked about before, and amazing taste. And so we're excited to announce, and you're one of the very first to hear this, that we are rebranding entirely from Bubba's Foods to Be Fine Foods. And the idea is to be keto, be paleo, be simple, be grain-free, be you. And so it's Be Fine Foods, and it'll be coming out in December of 2021. Really, really excited by that change. And in my career, I've had the opportunity to work on a lot of brands. And like any good marketer, I like to do my packaging refreshes like every one of us does. This is the first time in my career that I've done a 180 on branding. I mean, it's completely new. And it was very scary, but we've done a phenomenal job. Marketing team, our sales team, operations, phenomenal job of bringing this together. And be keto, be paleo, be you. Be whoever you are.
In your tribe. I love it. Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you, about social, right? So what role has social played or should social play with your market and your brand and going directly to people?
It's gotten evolved so much since social has arrived on the scene, so to speak. One of the most powerful things I think that social has done for every brand and every consumer is given consumers a voice directly to the brand. And when I first launched gluten-free checks, there's a great story about, but we were getting handwritten letters, right? And now, or you'd call the 1-800 number and talk to some call center in Texas or whatever. Now you have the opportunity to directly interact with brands. And so I think the most important opportunity for social is very similar to what I said about demos, and that's a direct connection to your consumers. It allows you to learn, get ideas. We do new flavor ideas all the time, partnerships. You really pay attention to them. It's huge. There's Twitter, there's Facebook, there's Instagram. The one that I'm really excited about, we're going to be testing in January, is TikTok, which I hate to admit, but I've become wildly obsessed with. It's a horrible time waster, but it's so much fun. And so I'm really excited to test on that. But the idea of creating content through your consumers is fantastic. The second part that I think is really powerful is it allows you to target and segment in ways that were not possible before. So the old school days of marketing and advertising, you well know, is like, all right, I want to go after healthy men. So I'm going to do a men's journal, men's health. That's fine. That's targeted, that's segmented. Now, you can get down to the person. And I'm actually one of the people who love ads on Facebook or love ads because it's like, oh my God, that's exactly, yes, I want that. Yes. And yes, I want that. And yes, I want that. If you go into my phone right now, I have probably 30 tabs in my internet browser to products that I want to explore and buy because of ads I've gotten on those social media platforms. So I think the ability to target market in a way that was not possible before is not only beneficial for consumers, but obviously beneficial for brands. So those are the key factors.
That's awesome. And, using your words, that's not a time waste. That's R&D.
It's funny. I have no idea how TikTok does it, but how in Vegas they have no clocks and no windows, so you have no idea what time it is. I go on TikTok and I'm like, all right, I'm going to spend 10 minutes on this. It's 3 days later and I'm like, oh my God, what just happened? It's insane how they just eat your time up. It's fantastic. The content on TikTok, kudos to those guys. And obviously it's all the user generated content. It's phenomenal. It's great.
Dustin, thank you so much for being so generous with your time. Thank you for leading all of us forward in this movement. And, we're going to have you back to talk about some of these things. So again, thank you.
I would love to.
And congratulations. Yeah. Yes. And maybe most importantly, stay on this reawakening journey. I think that, that is what makes you you, is that you are working hard to be who you are. I just love that. And thank you for doing that.
I just put two and two together. Awaken Foods. I can really tie to that. But I really appreciate that. And to all the people out there, I wish you the best on your journey as well.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. This is Duncan Olney, your host on the Firebelly Social Show. I'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Firebelly Social Show. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.